right. Today we're going to look at conscious consumerism. Welcome to False Advertising, the show that aims to dispel misconceptions about modern day society. I'm Labrie, and joining me is my co-host Donovan.
That's me. I usually wave in these, and I realize that if this actually turns into a podcast format, that doesn't translate very well.
Yeah, because eventually we'll be putting this on Anchor.
Eventually, I feel like there's probably a reason I should, use my voice.
Yeah.
So hello.
Perfect.
There you go.
Something I think that is good to follow up after last week immediately is the fact that Sony and Microsoft did this 180 on Cyberpunk, where we talked about how a product was so bad and the marketing was so great, where they actually turned around and the distributors said, "Nah, we're gonna give refunds," and I thought that was cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of just hyped up stuff. Just yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like the nice thing is I think because it had like so many pre-orders, pre-orders for that game were nuts, and so they just kind of felt it. Like I think a lot of people just like bought into the hype, basically.
Yeah.
Said last week, and then but yeah, no, it's pretty cool that everybody's basically gone to. Everybody's come back around. They're like kind of like, all right, this is not what I wanted or not what I was promised. This is not the snake oil of gaming. It's not going to cure cancer and.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like
Keanu Reeves is not actually the second coming of Christ.
Unfortunately not. But yeah, like with something like 80 million pre-orders, like of course people are bound to be unhappy, and it's really cool that companies went out of their way to do that, because I haven't heard anything from CD Projekt specifically, but that must be a nightmare over there. And it's good to know.
Yeah, they had their own kind of like outreach. Like basically they've been working with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've been very cooperative with like issuing refunds to people who aren't happy. But yeah, they've been, I don't know, handling it the best they can.
Wow.
I don't know, it's pretty clear. Nobody that actually worked on the game wanted it to be released when it got released.
Yeah.
Like it was basically just a deadline put on them by the company to make money for Christmas. So
fun.
That's kind of where they're at. None of them wanted to release it. I think there's something like early January, maybe mid-February. I can't remember the exact date, but there's basically like a 1.1 patch, or I guess what you would call a 1.0 patch, where I think they're going to add all of the polish and things that they wanted to be there for the actual release of the game.
Fair.
So
it's good to see companies do that, right? Because tying into last week's theme and this theme is we're talking about like using your money or just buying the things that you believe in, and it's good to know that some companies out there do admit fault instead of just hunkering down and saying nothing.
Just double down on being shit.
I mean, some places do that, right? But
honestly,
it's just kind of the nature of the world that we live in. I was wondering if you specifically have any kind of local shops that you boycott, because I think we often think about like, I'm going to support or not support like large brands, but I think it's interesting to think about it from like a local perspective as well. Where do you spend your money, and where do you decide not to?
I'm pretty bad at this one still. I've been really trying to. It's been easier since COVID started, but I want to stop spending on fast fashion entirely. That's a pretty big one for me.
That's fair.
Which is rough too. I don't know. It's just rough because like I care a lot. I care a lot. I like to look good in how I dress. That is what I've been like trying to do more of, and I feel like it hasn't really been a boycott so much of it, just like I don't need to buy clothes, so it's not really but it's one I definitely want to look into. I don't know, the more you just read about that shit, the more you just find out you're like, man, this is just so ass. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a big place that I see a lot of room for improvement. I feel like the two ends is you either like buy into fast fashion, where it's just like cheap shit, literal shit that is going to like break and go turn into textile waste within like a year, or they're all like these like weird cheap like tacky, I guess, or very trendy that turn into tacky just by the nature of how fast fashion operates, but they're just going to end up as waste. And that's like this one end, but it's cheap and it's accessible and it's affordable. And then the opposite end is like all of like high fashion and like this just like super luxury taxed corporate greed fueled shit that I hate almost as much as the other stuff, but like it's almost all the same. It's like the same, maybe honestly, I feel like it is the same. All of it goes to luxury tax. It still uses the same shit, like labor abuse
Yeah,
and
that's
like all
fair.
that. Like there's not. It's not even like yeah. Like there's some brands that are doing slightly better, but honestly, I haven't done a like deep dive into figuring it out. But it's basically in this place of like looking for where are nice clothes that are made with some kind of like trendy or visual appeal in mind, but are not backed and supported by labor abuse and like just shit quality.
Yeah, like I think fashion is this weird, crazy world, and like we'll definitely get into fashion itself on another day. But like even when I look into the types of clothing brands that I want to support or buy from, it's such a slippery slope. Because on one end, you have places that are like probably good for the world in some way, and then you have others that sound really good on the surface, and they're just as bad as like old Nike. And it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird like that, right? But I think a lot of the local shops that I personally boycott are are for personal stories. Like I think a lot of the things that I boycott that are like a mon pause or a one off are because of just the way that like
Mm.
the owner has impacted the community. Like for instance, there's a place called Campus Pizza in Waterloo, and I don't go there because I know for a fact that they have on like multiple instances taken people's credit card numbers and just charged them up the ass like at like a later date, right? And this has happened to like a friend of mine, and of course you can call get a refunded whatever. But for some of these students that go there and are like immigrants, they probably don't know what's going on, and that's pretty messed up,
And
right? Imagine using your credit card with just one place, and then a week later you get charged like 5 grand to like some random place, and it's just like that's a lot. And I mean it's hard to to sit down and trace that unless you have like a class action lawsuit. But yeah, no, that's super shady and shitty. And that's the
ew.
yeah the
Yeah.
so like I don't buy pizza from there. There's a bar that recently closed, so there's no point in dropping its name, but the owner is like just kind of a savage in the way that they do business because they own several things in the region, and I've just never gone there. I mean, it's like on the other end of town for me, but it's
Mhm.
just yeah, those are the things that I like to keep in mind when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do or where I'm going to spend my money. Is it's how does it impact my community locally?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I yeah. Retweet. I don't know if I've had a lot of like local experience. I was like thinking, I'm like, how many like most local business experiences I've had have all like been positive, I think, for the most part. Like I don't remember the last time I like ran into a small business and I was like, wow, I hate this place. I hope it goes out of business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
like it's like, yeah, this place sucks ass. Like, very rarely. I feel like I guess my hope is that the entropy of the universe means that those places will crash and burn
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they're so small anyway. And if you're not doing a good job at like, you're just not going to be able to stay afloat.
That's and like
So
the
yeah,
thing is like especially now you want to be really nice to small businesses because they are feeling this
yeah,
pandemic the most. And I would agree that most small businesses are probably really good in the sense that they try to do their best to like make a profit but still keep all of their clientele happy. It's just that there is
yeah.
yeah, there's a couple of people out there that are not as stellar, which is unfortunate. Fun, fun, fun. But I want let's take a look at it at like the larger brands because I think more people relate to like the bigger corporations that we all know of. So I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about some good brands that we hear about and kind of how they differ.
Haha.
Like I do think most of them do their best and they are better alternatives. Um, and I think it's worth talking about where they are, how far they could go, and how far they are ahead of like the competition. So I'm talking about things like Tom's, like Ten Trees, like Patagonia, the Body Shop, some of Google's stuff. Because I think Google is like a very neutral company in the fact that they have a lot of like insidious kind of algorithmic. I want to know everything about my user, but also like they'll spend money and like create all these initiatives. Like they'll have STEM initiatives for like women, or they have grants and stuff, or they have like certificate programs that are usable in the real world. And I think that's you know it's weird because it balances out.
Hmm.
But yeah, what are your thoughts about Tom's?
Tom's. I'm actually gonna be. I'm gonna level with you. I want to hear your thoughts on Tom's first. I do not know a whole lot about Tom's.
Okay, so Tom's is a company that, since foundation, has decided that for every brand of shoes that they sell, they will give a pair of
Yeah.
shoes to someone in need. The founder has this, heart-driven story about how, he's seen a lot of kids that just I I hate to put it this way, but it's like the spin of like the white savior in Africa, where he sees people that just don't have shoes and wants them to live a better life, and I respect the sentiment for that. So I
Hmm.
think they've given over 10 million pairs of shoes to people in need, for the 10 million plus that they've sold, and that's really cool. I for the longest time didn't like Tom's because I thought there were better ways to do that. I think
Hmm.
like when you end up just throwing consumer goods at like a at an area that's in need, quote unquote, you tend to destabilize an economy. And like I read this as an article somewhere, but they were saying that like the way that Tom's distributes them is they just kind of drop them off, right? And people just decide, how they're gonna do this. And so you have this entire kind of problem where people in like some of these communities used to like make and sell shoes or sandals, and now it doesn't matter because like there's a resale market for Toms. And not like, of course, people can continue to go in other ways where they're like, okay, like I could eventually just change my job. But the thing is if you have a resource for free and it is continuously for free, you don't really have a lot of ingenuity in that kind of field, and it just takes away from like potential anything. Like I think it'd be really cool if there was an international brand of sandals or something that came out of like Africa, like a traveler sandal. Like let's just say that that's like something that I think would be really cool, and maybe it never
Hmm.
came to fruition because shoes are like now free in like several regions in Africa. Now
Yeah. No.
it's an extreme hypothetical, but it's just you could do something like water instead, right?
Yeah. No. And yeah, it's not even a hypothetical. Like that actually happens. Like that's actually probably one of the biggest, like to that whole like white savior stereotype. That's probably one of the biggest counter arguments to it with
Mm.
things like Tom's and other initiatives like that. Um, I'm trying to remember. There's other like it's a very common one of like for everything we'll donate one for everything we sell.
Right.
And in like in a lot of nations like especially textile stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's this very like weird cyclical thing of like I don't know exactly where Tom's, but if they're mass producing shoes and they're able to sell them at any price that anybody's willing to pay in a first world country, there's like an 85 to 90% chance it was probably made in an African country anyway. So,
Yeah.
um, like, like it's kind of just the way that things roll. I don't know that 85% I made up, like, but it's like very likely. I won't use stats because I don't know exactly, but it's very likely that if it's at a price that you're even willing to pay for, it was probably made in in an African country. And the thing is like you could argue this back and forth, but now what happens is it's like there's these textile workers that used to have local business,
Yeah.
but now these first world countries are growing, and the reason they're growing is because they're taking advantage of these underdeveloped countries and their ability to create resources and textiles. And then they're also giving them back to their workers for free because they're being shipped back to Africa and donated, which
Yeah.
actually gets like in the long run just ends up we just need a bunch of cheap labor and then there's no internal economy. Like it'll ruin economy and ruin employment in those African countries
Mm-hmm.
where their donations are going to because now there's no clothing market. This is
Yeah.
one of the biggest criticisms of like donating clothes too. Like if you just like mindlessly toss clothes in the Salvation Army bins and things like that, like it feels nice to know that it's not actually like, oh, I didn't just throw them out. Yay, it's not going to landfill. But like that kind of like aid where or like clothing aid has ruined the local economies for clothing in a lot of countries because why the hell would anybody spend any of their money on those things because I can just get them for free from outside aid. And now that's like an industry that just doesn't exist and won't ever grow.
Yeah. And like the question is here is would you rather support Tom's or Adidas, right? Like that's kind of where we sit is like would you rather support like a shoe company that is going to try and do something well intentioned, or would you rather support a shoe company that is just going to take your money.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many like, yeah, um, it's a really like rough situation because there's like a lot of like the guilt doesn't actually do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody says it pretty well in that like there's guilt with everything. You basically can't live in a consumerist society and consume anything. Like if you want to weigh everything at its value, there's basically no consumption that can be done without you boiling it down to damn, I made somebody else's life somewhere in the world better. Like it's just kind of it's a very defeatist view to have,
Yeah.
but it's kind of part of the truth. So like one of the ways you deal with that is like it isn't the so much like um it's like the argument of like gluttony, if you've ever heard that before,
I haven't.
where it's not like okay, basically it's like gluttony doesn't say it's bad to eat. It is bad to like eating and enjoying food is not a bad thing. Like
Right.
a lot of people just say like it is not bad to treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It is bad to like obsess and indulge, and like gluttony more refers to like I mean this is kind of debatable, but like the stress eating thing as well, right? Like when you turn to like food as like I have another problem, so I'm just going to ingest food until like very extreme cases of that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in a similar sense, as it's not the solution. Like the good path to follow is not to just be like, well, I'm gonna just like start cutting off leaves from the trees and stitching them together so I can be at one with me. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to go that far, right? There's more of a just like
Have you ever seen
being aware that this shit exists.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the
and then
show
how
The
can
Good
you
Place?
combat it. I've not. I'm very bad with shows.
No, yeah. I'm not a massive like American television watcher, but it's funny because they kind of bring this up, where like the idea is to get into heaven, you need a certain amount of like karmic points, and that gets tallied. And in a world that's ours, the person who was the best at it like is like some random college guy got high one day and he found out that like, oh, everything you do is evaluated, so it's like the overall impacts of what I do has to change, right? So he was the only person on earth that had a positive value. And even then, when they compared it to like 1,000 years ago, where they originally like had whatever kind of adjusted the criteria to get in, he was like, oh yeah, he's on a good track if he was like 5, right? Because like he might brush his teeth with something that's sustainable in theory, but the problem is like this is a monocrop, so it takes away from the wild area, and so like there's less diversity, which means the ecosystem is less stable. And it was just like, wow, there's all of these things. And it's true. It's like, short of me literally funding every single thing as a one-off from like a local, it's what are the implications of everything you do? And we're not going to answer that for you today. Like, if you're here to get the answer, we don't have that. We're just here to explore it, because, like, I think another brand that's an interesting trade-off is Nike. So, like, I would say Nike and Adidas are probably very similar in the sense that, like, they don't use sweatshops in the definition, right? They're still, like, labor-intensive, hard workplaces, and you don't like them. But they technically are not sweatshops because people aren't chained to their desks. Although, like, what else are they going to do for work? And we could get into that another time. But the thing is like, Nike will kind of be hypocritical, and they'll go and use that money to fund things that they think are socially redeemable. Like, they funded Colin Kaepernick, right? And they're very socially aware. Whereas, like, other brands that do the same thing literally do nothing. And it's, would I rather support the hypocrite, or would I rather support the company that knows what it does?
Yeah. There's so much. There's so much about like I guess we can kind of like I have like other points to make, but I kind of want to I know where we're going with this episode, so I want to move on. I want to move on to I think that's a good spot. We've like covered a lot of stuff there, so I think we should continue.
Yeah, I just to bring up real quick, because I do think it is important. There are good brands out there that do better things. Like, I think Patagonia is a good example. Patagonia, a lot of their stuff is like recycled goods. They're like a really good brand in terms of having like good wildlife hiking, like outdoorsy gear. And a lot of their money goes into initiatives like creating more, natural reserves and having a more sustainable like ecosystem. Like that's really good in the sense they put their money into programs instead of just like let's get rid of our inventory.
Mm-hmm. No, fair.
Did you have anything you wanted to input on Nike before we did move on? Like seeds or whatever.
Seeds. No, we can we can drop those for now.
Okay.
When we go into like the abstract stuff, we can bring up
All right. What were you
how
thinking
every
of?
company is trash.
Yeah.
No, go for it. Go for it. Every
I mean,
everything sucks.
I mean, like at the end of the day, everybody is self-interested, and when you go into business, that's not going to change, right? So like, you kind of just pick the poison you choose, or the thing that you think is like the better portion of the world, if you're trying to be a conscious consumer, right? Because if you don't care, you're just gonna pick whatever you think is like cool, pretty, nice, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think over the last, I'm gonna say like 20 years to like maybe 30, 40. Being a conscious consumer has become a lot more of a thing. And that's why like there have been so many boycotts for things. Like after the Sandy Hook shootings, a group of moms got together and they decided they were going to have like a grassroots initiative for everyone to boycott Starbucks because you could still carry guns in America into Starbucks cafes. And lo and behold, the moms of America ended up making that change. Which is wild. You can kind of push a brand to do what you want with your money, and like, sure, you don't have that much impact on like a corporation as an individual, but as an individual, you are part of a network, and if people feed into your ideologies or agree with you, then you're more likely to be persuasive. So why do you personally buy certain brands over others? Like what are the decisions you make when you're picking a brand?
That is. Oh man. For me, it is honestly a lot of it comes down to value. I am probably my least favorite thing to I hate the luxury tax. I hate the like I don't know what hype factor. The Apple tax is the most like direct example I can think of off the top of my head, but that exists in other products too.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of like mainstream consumer electronics especially suffer from this. The more household of a name an electronic is, the more they will bump up their margin of revenue for it. You see that most predominantly with Apple stuff, because they can basically. Like I don't know. Is it a bad value? No, because the thing is like they sell you something unique enough that you can't really compare it to other things.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've had this debate with so many people about like Apple versus Android. I don't dislike Apple per se. I just don't see the value in a lot of their products and a lot of their ecosystem. There's like one or two things I like about Apple, but I feel like they kind of use this like ecosystem effect and everything. But tangent and all that aside, with specifically Apple, things like that are kind of what'll make me get very, very like decisive on brand. Is like, am I paying for what I'm getting? And that is kind of like a big thing. And like honesty of a brand and how upfront they are with that. I do a lot of research before buying things like that as well. Like I am pretty big on that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, to be honest with you, it won't often like it's. I don't even know if it's conscious in the kind of context that we're talking about right now. Usually because the answers end up being very similar for a lot of goods anyway, where it's like everything sucks ass. So
Right.
like it's kind of more conscious consumption on the like, is this money being spent like appropriately? Am I getting good value? And that's kind of what my biggest brand decision factor is. How about you?
Um, I would put it between two things where it's like, am I getting a good deal personally, right? Where it's not that I don't buy things at like full price, but sometimes I will buy things that I maybe care less about because that's like a bargain, right? Like if I like, for instance, I have a Versace watch, and like I have issues with a lot of leatherworking stuff in general, but like I wanted to treat myself at Costco, and it was at like probably half value because they bought them in bulk, and I was like, well, I'll do this. But then at the other times,
and I don't want to guilt, like, yeah, like that's a big point about what I say too, right? Is I don't think anything about conscious consumption. It's not incredibly productive to guilt others like consumption habits. Like I don't think that's a productive conversation to have either, because when it's just like a slippery slope that leads down to like what we said before. You just can't buy anything.
Yeah.
Like, guilty conscious consumption is just not a like. I don't think like only place I ever feel the need, and I will kind of get vocal with people about it, is the people that are actually using those like that are on the fast fashion shit, like actually riding the fast fashion curve, where it's like if you're buying clothing, like new clothing to wear it once or twice, and like seasonal rotation of like cheap clothing and things like that.
Yeah.
That is the like one like there's like a line, right? But you know what I mean? But in terms of like people who want to splurge and treat themselves on something nice, and even just like a brand support, because it's such a different story, right? Like I think some of the best consumers might actually be this, like the most conscious consumers might actually be the hype beasts and like these supreme people. These kids that are going out and grinding for like 6 weeks at the McDonald's so they can go and buy their one goddamn hoodie, and they're gonna sleep, shower, shit in that thing for like the next 2 years because that's their pride and joy.
Damn.
Are probably doing a bit of a better job than some other people. Like, you know what I mean? So like guilting people along luxury goods is not ever the intention. But sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but I don't want you to like look down on a purchase like that.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I also like for instance, I buy all my OVO at ticket price, and that's because I think it does well because it buys into a brand that is Canadian on an international stage. It supports the music that I enjoy, and I just like I think that's good. And then in terms of like my day-to-day purchases, I tend to do what I think is like when I have a product that I don't really care about, you know, its brand or its value, and it's just a necessity, like groceries, like I guess like random small tech things. It kind of goes back and forth between what is convenient and what is like good. So for instance, I will visit the farmers market occasionally when I can, although in the state of a pandemic I haven't gone a lot.
I don't even know if it's opening or running, but yeah.
Right, or I'll go to something that's like a Food Basics or a No Frills, right? If I'm up at a normal time, because I also don't tend to have the same hours as other people, right? So for instance, for convenience, I will go to like a 24-hour like grocery store, and I'll pick up things because I operate in the late hours. And so it's that's kind of where it is. I'm really weird where I think if I lived in a place like Toronto, it would be much easier for me to be a lot more ethical in all my decisions because I would have more options. But because like I don't for like the in-person purchases, I just kind of choose with what makes sense at that time. And so I very much kind of go back and forth between like, okay, I'm going to try and do these things because that just makes more sense. Like for instance, I don't really buy lottery tickets, but I will go in on better lotteries, like charitable ones. And like we'll talk a bit about that later. But, you know, at the same time, if I'm only up super late and I need food, well, I'm going to go to the grocery store that maybe is not locally sourced or whatever. Yeah, that's how I know.
I got you. That makes sense.
So let's talk about like brands in the sense of like what makes you feel good versus like what is actually good. And I don't want to go into the nitty gritty because like of course we'll just always come back to the idea of like, yeah, don't buy anything, it's trash. You can be happy in a box with that one set of clothing that you stitch together, right? But you know, like
brands that make
so I think like Apple is a good example, right? So Apple, the reason you buy Apple is because you already have Apple, and they feed you this good stuff like. I think their iPhones are like very recyclable if you send them back to Apple, right? Like if you dispose of your Apple waste at Apple, they have a way of breaking it down, and then it's just kind of, I guess, more eco-friendly. But like also, I don't think it's a good product as just a consumer in general. I think the amount of adaptability it has is pretty bad. It doesn't have much like cross utility with like third party things and other brands, and I just think that in and of itself is pretty trash. Now it's cool because they have their own like system of like language and programming, and so like you're less likely to come up with viruses for Apple products. But like as you know, we go farther and farther into the years, that'll just become a norm because like who's not going to create some kind of worm for because everyone and their grandmother has iPhones now, so I would argue it's probably more likely that going forwards you're going to catch viruses on Apple products. But like that's just what I'm talking about. They have this kind of dream to make you feel good because this Apple ecosystem is good. If you return our waste to us, we're gonna be responsible about it, and we're gonna try and get about your information. But how many people fucking like throw out their iPhones at an Apple store? They don't do that, right? Like
they do decent work with sustainability. With any company that is large and successful, is there's kind of like this basic premise of nothing like this kind of loops back to I guess the main point about like support small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of but basically every company, if they are large and profitable and making money, there is never anything that they are going to do unless they think it will make them more money.
Right, the bottom line is where they want to keep it, unless they have
that is that. And like kind of we touched on this a bit, and I think it does circle back, but like marketing is just evolving basically in terms of what is successful at getting people to resonate and spend their money.
Mm-hmm.
And like in Apple's case, there's a lot of this stuff about being more like environmentally friendly and things like that. Like they've done this whole movement about like, let's remove the charging brick from our phones. Like when they sold the most recent iPhone, they don't actually include a wall to USB adapter anymore. You need to already and I mean that's a fair enough assumption. Like but somebody there in the marketing department was like sitting there with like a pen and paper, and then this dude just like stood up and did like, holy shit, I figured it out. Like this dude's like, bro, we're gonna save, you know how many millions of dollars we're gonna save and not sending these things with everybody, and bonus points, environmentally friendly. Let's go. All right guys, get a coffee. Good shit. See you guys next week. Anyway, so there's absolutely no way that anything a company that size does is ever single purpose. So in some ways, thankful, I guess. They do a good thing. Yes. Are they a good company? That's kind of where I land on a lot of those big companies and their very like sustainable practices and stances. And then Apple is still going around doing this shit where it's like we have all the like Chinese factories and like manufacturing plants overseas where this shit gets made.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite is the fine print engineered in California, finer print made in China.
Yeah.
On every single one of Apple's products. And like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like that kind of stuff is where I kind of land.
But you can go beyond that, right? Because like, everyone and their grandmother has tech that comes from China, but how many fucking companies are so skeezy that they're gonna solder in all their components that you can't take it to a local mom and pop shop to fix like or upgrade your RAM or switch out your HDD, and that you now need to go back to Apple to like be overcharged to like switch up your components. Like I think that is really, really like skeezy.
Yeah, and you would be correct. It's demographics, right? Like they don't make iPhones for people like you and I.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't make iPhones are not there for people that like to build their own PCs.
Mm-hmm.
And iPhones are not there for people that want to go onto Google and figure out how do I repair my phone or how do I upgrade my phone. Like it is a matter of they sell their product for a type of person, and they marketed it to get it to a whole other type of like person.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. There's a lot of things. Like I said, I can shit talk the Apple tax. I think Apple products are good. I don't think they're good value. That is kind of where I land on them. And that
I
like
agree with that.
Most of what they offer is like I don't know, like it's just very compelling. I have friends that are like 100% Apple.
Mm-hmm.
Shit's like it's pretty nice. Like they do actually do some like cool stuff. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but just like it's like surface level of like what Apple does in terms of like stuff for users. Like when you have like their Apple Home and their like if you have like their AirPods will sync with whatever device you're currently using,
Right.
whatever Apple device. When you have that, as long as they're all signed in with the same cloud, it's or like the same account, they're kind of smart enough to realize what device you picked up.
Yeah.
So you don't ever have to switch what headphones you're using.
That's pretty cool.
There's one of the most interesting ones is their Apple Watch, the newest Apple Watch. You can use it as a phone, but only a phone and only as a phone between it and a paired iPhone. So you can give it to your kid so that they have like a smart device that's a cell phone. Like instead of giving your kid an actual whole ass like iPhone,
Yeah.
you just give them a watch and now they can call you and talk to you and it works like a mini phone because it's paired with whatever.
Right.
So like there's just like a handful of like ecosystem things where I look at that and I go, well, damn, if I didn't give a shit about like, if I wasn't in the place where something I want to do is like when I'm older, I want to buy my own third party router. I want to set up my own like subnets and shit in my house to like optimize where network traffic is going. Like,
yeah,
most people don't want to do that. Like I have like ideas for like home improvement and shit I want to do with my technology and like,
yeah, it makes sense if you're building an Apple home for sure.
And it's a solution, right? Like,
yeah,
fuck it. If I have zero, like it's like me with cooking. I have absolutely zero interest in cooking. When I grow up, I'm gonna be the biggest simp for good foods. I'm gonna have vegetables delivered to my door weekly, and I'm just gonna cook straight from the book. Like that's just how I'm gonna live my life.
Fair.
I have so little interest in going to the store, finding ingredients, and like cooking shit. So, and I can like from that perspective, I can imagine anybody that feels the same way looking at a computer. Where they're like, bro, fuck this Windows shit. Every time I open something, I got to do like 16 things in the system settings and fix it. Fuck that. Like,
maybe we'll do a special where we get you to cook on my YouTube channel.
God, I'll be so miserable. Just you could retitle it. You'll have 2 titles. Upload the same video once as a cooking challenge. Second time, Donovan bitches for 15 minutes.
But yeah,
like, exact same.
No, I agree. Right? There's a reason I own like a MacBook. Because it is a reliable, sturdy piece of equipment that like I DJ with. There's also a reason that it's a 2015 model and not later, because Apple just decided, oh, we've gotten to the brand power where I can be more skeezy and people don't care as much, right? And like his post.
I think it's even credit, right?
Yeah,
you can still use a 2015 MacBook. Like, I don't know. Well, we've been like in a weird place. We'll see how it goes in the future. Apple had this like weird 5-year trend where I was like, this company is dog shit. I don't want to support anything that they do. Mm-hmm. They came back though. They came back in the last couple of years. Like if you had asked me between like 2016, 2018, I would be like, anybody that supports Apple is like stupid. They're just making shit products now. Like they actively made their things worse for a period of time. But now we're coming back. Like we're coming back and they've like clearly something in engineering has changed. You can just see it in like the vision and like where they're taking their products. Yeah. The new Apple Silicon stuff is really, really cool. Like as a developer, as somebody really who cares a lot, like I am an Android user for the reasons that I've said before. Yeah. I like to, but I don't think that you should never look at tech as a like, if you really want to evaluate tech, you can't be like, I'm evaluating this as somebody that likes Apple or somebody that likes Android. You evaluate tech as what is it good for? Like what is it capable of? And so I try to keep that approach when I'm looking at that. Yeah. But yes, I will casually shit on Apple.
Like, yeah, no, for sure. Just closing thoughts on my MacBook is the processor is good. The heating sink and like the fan control is wonderful. But the reason it still works well is because I was able to upgrade the RAM. Like this is an aftermarket product, and because it's 2015, it's malleable, right? So like the RAM has been like quadrupled compared to stock, right? The SSD has been, like it's better, and it's just like it's good because it is a computer that can handle these tech upgrades. It's just that I would never be allowed to do that with a MacBook Air that's 2016 or a new Pro, right? And like when you think about the fact that like technology kind of doubles every year in terms of transistors, right? And then just over time, we as consumers get better RAM, better CPUs. Like sometimes within the same gen, it's shitty that I could not go and just update my old shit, and instead I need to spend like another $3,000 on something that's gonna let's say like keep up with the times, but then I have all this electronic waste.
Yeah.
It's funny. I to think about it, like I think everyone and their mother has something to say about Apple. Like it really is a company that you have an opinion on. Even if you don't care, you have an opinion on Apple.
It's just big enough. It's like everybody has. It's like everyone knows who Amazon is, right? It's just all those big companies.
Oh, did you
Everybody
hear?
has a. Yeah.
Amazon, like Ontario, has a like COVID outbreaks.
Oh,
which
nice. I did
which
not hear that
yeah,
promo. Unsurprising, but
which is funny because
good
that
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just like my Christmas. I hope that was like not too recently. I stopped all my Amazon ordering like a week or week and a half ago for like Christmas and stuff. So
I still have like two more things to get, so we'll not
that's
talk
sick.
about.
Yeah, just leave them outside for a week or so.
Yeah, that's right. Um,
Just pretend that the outside is the Christmas tree and like pick them up on Christmas morning. Just leave them there.
that's exactly it. But here's the thing: is like I think Amazon is a good company in the sense that like you buy them because they are user friendly, and they are just
Amazon or Apple?
Amazon. They're very
Okay, okay,
convenient,
okay,
right? Quick
okay. Yeah.
quick shipping, great return policies, but also
Mm-hmm.
like nobody's surprised that like there's COVID outbreaks. I would say because like we all know that Amazon is not a great company in how they treat their employees, in like just caring about I guess like their image apart from is a good service.
Yeah, I struggle with this one a lot. Amazon's a rough one.
Like Amazon picked up
I'm an
Twitch,
Amazon.
and like we know how that went. Like literally nothing changed. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Amazon's a rough one. I am an Amazon Prime user. My life would be significantly worse without Amazon Prime.
Especially in today's
Uh,
context.
Especially this last year, Amazon Prime has been quite possibly the best thing. I am also a very big abuser of return policy. Like I would say, of the things I bought, probably half of them I've returned because I
Wow.
was just like interested in trying out. Like I will use that shit. I abuse, or I guess abuse. I don't know, but I will make a purchase on impulse, try it out, use the 30 days, ship it back if I'm not happy, and
Yeah.
I will go through the whole thing. Like I'll take it apart, I'll package it back up nicely, seal the thing. Like I'll go the whole 9 yards and ship it
Damn.
back. I know
Yeah.
you don't have to, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I like to believe in my heart of hearts, probably not in today's landscape, but maybe if it comes back in good enough condition, it'll be reused.
Yeah.
Most things that get returned usually just get dumpstered anyway because they have a no questions asked. If you just took the product, mashed it up, shoved it in a box, and put an Amazon label on it, they'll refund you because
I mean, their
happier
money's
customers are
insured.
worth more. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's happier customers are worth more than whatever insurance or whatever shit they pay on like lost or damaged
Yeah.
goods. But that point aside, um, yeah, the knowing that I am like just actively giving money to basically just support and promote the kind of like absolute like just like the shit tier like distribution and like fulfillment centers that are like literally in our country.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit is literally happening in my city.
That's true.
Like and that doesn't feel great. That's not a amazing feeling, but like goddamn, do I not know what I would be doing without it?
So this is
There's
interesting.
also
Just
yeah, go
just
ahead.
before we move on, because
Go ahead, go
I
ahead,
feel
go
like
ahead.
most people don't know this. When you return your Amazon products, they actually go out for liquidation, even if you can ensure quality. They don't get tossed. They don't get reused. They get sold in liquidation, and so you can go online and buy these lots of just like randomly assorted, like usually by like product style or product type, uh, like Amazon lots from like liquidation.com, stuff like that, and get a whole bunch of products that are usually totally fine. And then people just like there's this whole economy of people just buying like maybe $580 on a lot that they bid for, and you can get like monitors upon monitors. And I think like for any of our viewers right now, you should definitely check that out because the amount of consumerism has gone up tenfold on Amazon, and the fact that products are scarce right now, not a lot of people know about this. So like go ahead and look up like source from Amazon lots. They'll have like a product list and they'll have photos, and there are cases where people will see products like inside of the photos but not on the list. Like someone got a Nintendo Switch out of a lot and they only paid like $700. They got like a 4K monitor, they got a Switch, they got a bunch of stuff. And like this is not the thing you'll find every time. But if you're someone like Donovan who knows the products are fine, but you get rid of them, like it's something worth checking out. Now, of course, it's a one-time policy because this is a third-party seller; it's not Amazon. But if you're interested in taking a gander, there's some really cool stuff. The real issue is, will it be okay when it's shipped to you? Because most of this stuff, from what I understand, is in places like Indiana or like Las Vegas. Although you can find a couple others, but yeah, like worth checking out, 100%.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, continue your Amazon rant.
Oh, dude. the biggest thing that irks me about Amazon is how it treats competition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're probably I think they are in Europe or someplace. They have like some anti-competitive lawsuits and stuff out for them most likely. I mean, not that that means anything. Every big company usually has several lawsuits filed against them that are active at some point or another. But the fact is, like, there was this one specific example. I was looking to try and find the name of the company, and I can't, and it's really making me sad. But basically, you can now get all of those like Alexa enabled smart like kitchen appliances and shit. Like, you know, like the smart coffee maker, you can get like smart microwave, you can get all these like smart toasters and things that like sync up, you can like set alarms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was not an Amazon idea. That was a small business that existed and wanted to connect. It was open source, and it was a platform that would connect with and it would connect with things like Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, whatever. It would it would just work with voice assistant.
Mm-hmm.
There was a business that was doing this, and they were like, it was like a small startup company.
Yeah.
They did not want to be acquired. They were doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their distribution channels was Amazon.
Right.
A month or two following their launch, Amazon Basics comes up, and because it's Amazon's platform, they can rank their own basics in like Amazon recommended things above other ones. They sell this shit at a loss for a couple months. 6 to 8 months later, this company goes under or sells out to like some other larger distribution.
Yeah.
But like basically, just shit like that. That was one of the most more recent examples in the last like 2017 or 2016, whenever smart shit was blowing up. But things like that. And that's just like pretty much one example of many. Basically, Amazon, just with its infinite pool of money, will just go look at cool ideas, implement it into Amazon Basics, sell it at a loss until it can undercut competition, and then own market share in online selling on that specific thing. And they just do this for a lot of shit.
And I mean, that's how they make billions of dollars, right? Which is this ridiculous.
Is why most cables in your house are probably Amazon Basics cables and shit like that. Like just like wires and other random shit that you have, and you know what I mean? And so but yeah, that stuff is real good. We love that. So anyway, I still pay Amazon Prime, and I probably still will, at least until COVID ends. But yeah, that one's rough. That one hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like it's weird that when you think about it, like large corporations are slowly becoming like governors or your own government for the ecosystems inside your house, right? Like you pay a small tax for, you know, whatever it is that you buy in this country, but like also, you know, Amazon or Apple or whoever is going to start to have like their own taxes, or, you know, like there's like a similar effect on the products in your home, right? Like for instance, if you had like an Alexa enabled home where you have your, you know, all of your appliances and stuff, you're slowly being taxed in the sense that they're always listening to what you're saying, and then you're gonna like start exclusively buying Amazon products, right? Or the same would be with like Apple stuff. Once you start up an Apple ecosystem, right, that just happens, and it's like, well, this is convenient, so I'm gonna, you know, still put out. And just watch for that. If you're not the tech savvy person, like Donovan or I, who is interested in creating like their own setups, just know that like when you pay for that convenience, you are still being charged something else that was not on the dollar price.
Yes, sir. I can tell a funny story about boycotting if we want to circle back to like effects of boycotting. Okay, this is a really, really fun one from last year, 2 years ago. Do you remember? I don't know if you saw like the stuff. What was his name? Roy Moore was he had like allegations for like being a child molester, or not allegations. Basically, was like convicted, and there was like a shit ton of evidence. He was a child molester, and there was like this whole thing around. There was one like talk show, Sean Hannity, that had I don't remember the details of how the case played out. I just remember the other outcome. So I don't want to speak to anyone. Basically, Sean Hannity supported Roy Moore, despite like all this evidence and stuff. And he was like a talk show host on like some Fox News channel shit. So I mean, that's kind of par for the course. But either way, the kind of like takeaway was basically that there was like a bunch of companies that advertised on his show, like had commercials running during his TV air slot.
Right.
One of them happened to be Keurig, you know, the fancy coffee making. They actually got a tweet, and somebody was like, "Hey, bro, you know that your ads play on Sean Hannity's show," and that he was like, "Yep, you know what? I think Roy Moore should get away. You know, I I don't remember what his actual stance was, but he was basically like standing in solidarity with poor Roy Moore and like victimizing him, despite all this evidence that he'd done bad shit. And it was just kind of gross and kind of sleazy. So Twitter was like, "Hey, bro, that's not cool." So Keurig replies, and we're like, "You know what? That's valid. We talked with them. We don't want our ads playing on his show. We're not going to show ads anymore on that guy's show." And in like one corner of Twitter, you were like, "Damn, this is sick. Guess I'm buying a Keurig for my friends for Christmas. Good job, Keurig. This is fantastic." So that was cool. But in another corner of the internet, there was a bunch of angry Sean Hannity fans on Twitter. And there was one especially angry guy who had at least some amount of followers on Twitter. And this guy goes online and he has a video. He takes a hammer. He's in his garage. It's actually the funniest thing in the world. He's wearing like flannel pajamas and like sandals with socks or flip-flops with socks.
Yeah.
And you just see his feet and he's in his garage. And he takes out the hammer. He didn't even bother to open the thing. He goes, smashes his Keurig on camera and uploads the shit to Twitter. The hashtag boycott Keurig. He says, "Good job, Keurig." In come all these people that are Sean Hannity fans being like, "Let's boycott Keurig." So now we have videos of boycotting Keurig. This dude on his 4th-story apartment yeets his Keurig off of the thing and it explodes on the ground. Take that, Keurig. Anyway, like, dude, it's so beautiful. It's absolutely the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. But you know what shows up a lot when you have hashtag boycott Keurig?
Keurig.
The word Keurig. So like this was actually something that happened, and this was like 2017, 2018, I think. So this was kind of like before, like kind of like in this wave era of like before Twitter cancel culture like really took off. Because I'd say that's like last year. It was like the year of Twitter cancel culture.
Yeah.
Like 2019.
For sure.
So this is kind of like before that, and kind of like writing that. Like marketers are sitting and going like, "Yo, they just like pissed off a bunch of people and got free marketing for it," or like so. But basically, there's just this whole thing about boycotting Keurig, and like all these people that smashed it. And my favorite thing is a study that's done afterwards that shows like when you boycott a product, statistically, you will just use that product again once the boycott is over. Because most people that care enough to boycott a product are going, like, if you cared enough about that product, or it was a big enough a part of your life that you felt to get engaged with the social like thing on it, most likely you had it because you thought it was a good product, and you're probably just going to be like, nobody really is, keeping like me tagged to see if I fulfill this boycott or not. So you're probably going to buy one. And then statistically, if you bought one in the first place, you'll probably buy one for your kids or a close family member.
Wow.
So like, it's just this like super backwards thing of like, wow, that's so sad. Keurig must feel really hurt that you just smashed their product and then most likely bought 2 more to replace it as a result of
what I think is really
boycotting
funny
them.
Is that like that initial premise where the guy is smashing the Keurig in the cardboard box means he went out and bought one.
No, in his garage, and it was his. It was his.
Okay.
He didn't even clean the thing. He didn't even clean, meaning like he made a mess of coffee in his garage. Like you see the coffee goes everywhere. Like, damn, Keurig's really gonna be mad that you have to go and scrub coffee out of your concrete garage. And like, it's just the most, just the most beautiful. Just so stupid.
Damn.
Anyways, this was like a precursor because this happens, and like 6 to 8 months later, this is when we had like the wave of like, all of those weird like social commercials. I think I mentioned the Gillette one last week.
Yeah.
Where like the best a man can be as opposed to best a man can get. Like all of these things that like they're taking a stance, and it's literally with the intention of like, we're going to gain an audience that are like, yay, go Gillette, and we're going to piss off a bunch of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of people that are pissed off are going to be pissed off enough to be angry and put the words fuck Gillette, which has Gillette in the hashtag. Let's go. Absolute W. And in 2 months, nobody will remember it, which is absolutely true. Nobody even remembers the thing that people are talking about with this like Gillette hashtag. Like nobody knows. Although my favorite thing about the Gillette one, when I went to revisit it, they're not even advertisements anymore. We don't even call them commercials. We call them short films. Gillette advertisement is literally titled on YouTube. It's a short film. It's filmed in a cinematic aspect ratio. So the shit's like
that's
real
crazy.
good. And there's just so many layers of beautiful just nuance. Anyway, that entire long rant about boycotting things to just marketing changes and what people find successful to get people to make purchases.
Yeah, I think
it's just no,
for sure. I think boycotts only are really successful when they have like a real validation or like strong emotional tie to them. And even then, like at max, I think they're gonna go for like 3 to 6 months. And like they have to be something really, really, like traumatizing or like really inspire people to stick to them. If it's something stupid like, oh, you pulled your commercials from a show, no one's gonna care.
That's what I mean. It's like the weirdest thing to get angry over too. Like I'm sure those commercials are probably back on his show if that guy still makes the show. I don't know if he got canceled by, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, for the time being, we're just not going to show. They didn't even take them off of Fox News. They were literally just like, yeah, that one little 1 hour time slot or whatever. We just won't show ads on his show.
Yeah.
Which is like insane that was what it took to spark like this whole boycott Keurig, and on top of that, like a large chain of people being like, damn, I love Keurig now. This is the coffee I'm gonna drink. We hate Tim Hortons. Let's go. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, but like, you know what I mean? They're like, let's side with Keurig. Whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just
that
kind
30-second Keurig ad.
It's wild, right? Like that just kind of furthers the whole like your purchasing power and like finances your voter influence. And like, yeah, you know, all of these people for sure boycotted Keurig for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, whatever, and Keurig probably felt that. But the amount of people that went out and bought more because of it probably offset that. And it's weird that like truly people do just kind of spend money on what they believe in, right? Like if you look at money as a resource, all you're doing is like upvoting when you buy or like, you know, sell anything or you know, even just like trying to do things with social media where you're like boycotting. And it's strange that consumer culture has changed from once upon a time it was you buy what you need, and it's like, oh, how do you feel? You know, like which of these would you like to pull from, you know, the ethereal plane and say, ah, yes, I support this. This is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's something that only kind of came out in the last 10 years because like I guess just the attitude of advertising and marketing, like we said last week, is just kind of like, what is it that someone cares about and how do we monetize that?
Yeah, man, that shit is like, it's wild. It's wild how it's come full circle.
Yeah, for sure.
If I had to like, I don't know, is there like did you have another? Are you transitioning to something here?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the idea here is that like, you know, if you're able to identify those pit holes, right, you're able to like escape that extra influence, right? And so like I think a lot of our conversations today are talking about like what are the things that draw you in about a brand and like the ethical implications behind that. And then, you know, just knowing what the marketing is trying to tell you, for example, with like the Apple, oh, you know, we're being responsible by being eco-friendly, but really we just don't want to spend money and save like an extra few million, right? And like knowing what it is behind the marketing is really important for when you make those decisions, because like those end results are really the only thing that matters when you're making that purchase.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, especially with larger brands, like a lot of like a really easy one to kind of deal with is like overconsumption in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
I think like that's like the easiest step you can kind of take, and that I kind of try to exercise more, is like there is a lot of shit that you can just go with not buying.
That's
and
true.
You can just be smart about when you choose to spend your money. And that doesn't really stop you from getting anything that you necessarily want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. I can, like, there are very few things I can think of. I don't know. I struggle to like, that was the easiest one for me. And it's like things you can do, right? Like, how do you beat this kind of marketing? It's the most applicable in fast fashion, but I think in any case, like if you're being encouraged to buy like lots of a thing, do you need it, right?
Yeah.
When can you substitute like getting the one thing you want from a company or brand, whatever it is, right? But getting that one thing and being aware of like how much consumption you're doing, and not necessarily being guilted into like, everything sucks ass, I can't do anything. But knowing that like as individuals, if you don't like, as long as you're not like feeding into the system constantly, that's already a step in the right direction. And I feel like it would be a lot better off if everyone was able to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially with clothing. Clothing is one of the easiest ones you can see that kind of one-to-one.
No, for sure. That is like, because everyone needs to wear clothing and people like find their own individuality and expression through clothing. It's important to consider that there for sure.
Go thrifting and support local businesses. Do more small business stuff. I want to do that more. Once COVID is over, I want to try and avoid ever shopping with like I kind of want to, I was genuinely thinking about that. Like, would I be able to like just like cancel Amazon Prime and just only go to like random shops in Toronto just to get everything I want? Like, I think I did this recently. Like, um, when we had that like 1 week of solstice before second wave hit like a truck,
Yeah.
and things were like kind of almost fine. Um, I did go downtown. I went downtown Toronto to just kind of like do the walk down Queen Street and like visit small businesses and stuff like that. I went to like a handful of thrift shops. We went to like I was with my girlfriend and we went to like some thrift shops and we went to a couple like stationary places and things like that. And it was just like a really wholesome and good time. Like, I don't know, I just had like cool chats with people that own these places and I like learned things from them and they just talked about their business and they just seemed so happy to be there. And it was just a very like human experience to get things that I was going to probably just go onto Amazon or go to like a Zara and just like mindlessly take, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just like that kind of shit is just very, very like refreshing and just very nice to know that you can do stuff like that. And so that is like one extra step. And kind of in that summarizing thought of everything that we've talked about, when you have like those human experiences mean a lot more to me and when I want to like interact with that business.
Yeah.
Especially once you get to that point where you kind of like need to internalize that marketing is always marketing. And it doesn't matter what lens, whether they call it a short film, shoot it in cinematic aspect ratio and theme it all about how toxic masculinity is bad. That would never have been done and that would have never been given money if it wasn't going to generate more money for the company.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so kind of like being aware of that and being aware that like I guess it is I am in some ways happy. I guess it is good. We are getting more of these taboo, less expressed subjects in a more public eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you could talk about how good, but the intentions are not in the same place. I think about that example of like the Apple charger and how like blatantly clear it is. Some dude was like, "Holy shit, I can save $10 million and slap an environmentally friendly label on this box. I'm getting a promotion." Like, and just like that kind of shit, right? Is just. I know I'm doing a disservice to a lot of people that probably work there and probably really care and give a shit and want things to be better. But at the end of the day, with large companies like that, just know why those things are happening.
And it's very hard to go wrong with something local, right? Like short of this person running
short of campus pizza, apparently.
Yeah, short of campus pizza or just someone who's using it as like a front. Like there's just so many benefits, right? Like locally sourced food is just eco-friendly. Locally sourced like clothing, even like thrift or not, it's just it helps with the local ecosystem in a way that big brands and corporations really ruin. And it's not to say that those brands and those giant corporations can't add value to your everyday life. Like I'm not gonna go and get like a television from fucking I don't know, like your mom and pop TV place because like I'm gonna be able to get like whatever I want, order it right away from Best Buy and have like a good warranty, a good like insurance policy if I want that. But you know everything else, like why not? Why can't you just go get your food from like the farmer down the road? Especially if you want to be a conscious consumer, which is what this is all about, right? Like your quinoa from the other side of the world probably isn't the best purchase. It probably has just as much fucking like carbon implications as meat does, right? And the only difference is there was like an animal life there. But like in terms of environmental like impact, right? Like it's still a big deal.
Oh boy. Oh man, that one is another whole topic for another. Dude, that is a whole conspiracy can of worms. Holy shit. That's one of my favorite. Climate change versus veganism is one of the best. Like,
it's crazy, right? Because like at the end of the day, they're like the same.
Oh man, don't even get me started. That wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't mean to drop that bomb, but it just that kind of is just tying into like local initiatives is like you don't have those greater implications at play, right? You don't have to fight against those like crazy ideology problems when things stay on the small scale. Yeah,
I agree.
Any closing thoughts from you?
No, I think I summarized my last little kick at the can was what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Support local. Not right now. Jeff Bezos can have my money for now. Unlucky.
Man. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I do want to know what purchases make you feel good, and what are the ethical decisions that you make when you're making your consumer purchases. This has been False Advertising, and we appreciate you guys.